So we're going to do Special Needs Family Information Roundtable is the name of the series that we are a part of, navigating the behavioral health care system with kids. There is a system. It has to be navigated. Now, and you have experience with navigating some of it, like personal interaction with it, or is this from the outside, middle, inside? How would you describe your interaction with the behavioral health care system?
So I am fairly new to Ohio, so I'm fairly new to all of what you have available.
Okay.
I'm from Texas. I have 2 foster adopted special needs kids. I also have a foster child that is special needs in my home. They range from ages 4, 7, and 14.
Okay.
So all I know about is we have a psychiatrist that the kids go to. We have a psychologist in the school system in Kettering, which is awesome.
Okay, good.
That's my knowledge.
All right. Well, this will be helpful because we do have some big picture stuff, and then we also have some going deeper individual stuff. A little bit about me. I have a bachelor's in education, master of divinity degree, certified family life coach, which combines life coaching skills and family life education. So we are always looking for the family dynamic that is present in a situation dealing with children. I'm also a Ohio certified family peer supporter. 20 years pastoral experience that was dealing with families within a faith-based church setting. And then after that, 10 years of mental health experience. I worked for 6 years, Kettering Health on their adolescent unit, and then that unit moved over to Dayton Children's. And so then I started working with more adults, parents, but even there, the family dynamic in mental health is very, very strong for a lot of reasons, and so became sensitive to it there. Also, been married to my wife, Lori, for 40 years. She's a registered nurse. She does labor and delivery. So we've started doing parent education and fatherhood education with Kettering Health with that as well. And then with a family peer supporter, they're always looking for the lived experience. So this is my lived experience. The fact that those 4 individuals are sitting on the couch smiling at the same time, that didn't happen for a lot. Wow, that has a short in it.
There it is.
Okay.
Didn't happen for a lot of years.
Did not happen for a lot of years, but they all survived in reasonably good shape. And we are very proud of that. And they like each other and can be in the same room without fighting, which also did not occur for many years. Between the 4 that were there, we had drug use, depression, anxiety, alcohol, charged with a felony, and one of them saw the grief that the other 3 put us through, and so they felt like they couldn't do anything wrong because they didn't want to add to the stress we were having with the other 3. That's family dynamics, which then produced its own set of perfectionism. But right now, they're all doing well. And then the other slide is the grandkids. So we're now in that stage. Yes, one of them is not like the others. So the teenage pregnancy, the older, she's now 19. And we see all of these kids almost every week. The generation not represented in this slide, I was just with my dad at court. Dealing with a traffic violation, so there's another set of family issues when you get to the caregiving of the older generation. So I've studied like the science and the practice of family dynamics, but we also live it every day. And you can see the happy one, the one that's not happy, some sort of influence and control. Families are complicated, and all families are complicated in their own way. And very often I like to, when I'm dealing with families, describe your family in one word. So I'll give you the opportunity. alive. Yes, okay? And that's a good thing. A lot of people will go with complicated and dysfunctional, and families are all complicated and dysfunctional in their own ways. But then the question then becomes, what is a functional family? And keeping the kids alive is the number one goal. Sometimes it's more complicated than other times. So congratulations on achieving that. And I make light of it, but there's a family dynamic that when a family is unable to complete that goal, then that also creates a lot of issues, very deep, complex grief and remorse and shame and guilt and all of that stuff associated with families as well. And so we acknowledge that. With that in mind, on our first slide, when navigating the behavioral health care system, the first thing that I wanted to emphasize is using and utilizing the home as the hub. Because very often we think of home is here and the behavioral health care system is out here. And actually the first thing is to put those together and integrate them. And having worked within the behavioral health care system, we know that there are things that we can do to support this, but we can't be a substitute for it. And one of the current trends that's very positive, particularly in Ohio, is the acknowledgement that these two systems have to be integrated. And so we're doing a lot better at supporting the adults and the home than we used to. And so in a lot of, Governor DeWine has some great initiatives going on, home care, support for parents, kinship care, all of those things. Even we have a fatherhood initiative statewide to take very often the othered parent and bring them and give them support to the function that they need. So this first slide really is about how do you create that supportive home environment, make it good to be home. That's kind of my motto personally. Because if it's good to be home, all of the other parts of the system work better. And there's really, I most recently worked at the Behavioral Crisis Center at Dayton Children's. And there were very often an adult and a child would come in and the home environment had completely broken down, or there was none, or it was highly dysfunctional. And we would go, okay, it does look like the needs of the child would be best served by getting them out of that environment. But we don't really have a good a better and good environment to put them into. So as you know, with the foster and adoption, that has its own set of trauma. And so when we would take someone into another set, we were doing a lot of trauma-informed care, and the acknowledgement that even the solution to the problem has trauma associated with it. So we're working on that. So within the home, and if you're familiar with this, this is probably stuff that you know, but I wanted the reminder. Is it good to be home for you and every member of the family? Because even if the caregiver is stressed out, it's very hard to give quality care. So the respite care and yes, all of that is necessary.
Absolutely.
So I'm getting an amen, yes, on that one. Establish the routines that promote safety and stability. Children will always push against order and structure if they don't perceive it to be in their own best interest. And so maintaining that and helping the child then accommodate this, you may not like it and it may not be convenient and it may not feel good, but it is coming from a place of creating an environment in which you can thrive and prosper. Spending the quality time together. We were talking beforehand about very often we get in crisis management and problem-solving mode out of necessity. but spending time with the child that is not crisis management or problem solving. When you get like with the weather we're having today, the storm has passed and the sun has peeked through for a minute, just to say, hey, we're going to do something fun. We're going to do something enjoyable. We're going to rest or relax or recreation or entertainment, and finding the opportunities. And the more of that we can do, very often it's like we're not doing problem solving, crisis management. Why? Because we're just having fun and allowing for that. Validating their feelings. A big part of every child that ever worked with an inpatient just wanted to be seen, heard, and understood and accepted. The patience and the understanding, that comes from caregiver self-care, because you can only do that for so long, and then as I am out of patience and I don't understand, and that's normal. Okay, so how do we dealing with that? Model healthy coping mechanisms. Children who do grow up with either parental anxiety, parental anger, internalize it and model it. And it's like, well, that's what I've seen mom do. And it was interesting on inpatient, we would try to create what we called the sanctuary feel. Like this space is all about safety and respect. So I guarantee you, we are here, we will give you respect, and we will work to protect your safety. And within that, you have freedom unless you jeopardize the safety or disrespect someone else. That's when we're going to call you. But if you don't do that, you're safe and respected here. And children who had been raised without that had a really hard time adjusting, because their fight or flight reflex was so like, if I relax and let my guard down, something bad's going to happen or I'm going to get hurt, so I cannot let my guard down. And in an inpatient setting, short term, that was almost more, we could address it, but we couldn't embrace it in that short setting. But we would at least try to get them glimpses of, you're safe and you're respected, you can be who you are, and it's safe to do that. And then we would see them playing games and healthy social interaction and having fun. And one of the assignments we would give to the kids was, I want you to catch somebody else in the room being happy. Because for the most part, they were sad and depressed and anxious. And they were thought, I can't be happy, I don't know how to be happy, I don't want to be happy, because happy is not safe. And you were just happy, you were just having fun, you were just smiling, I saw it. And they go, you're right, because very often they're not aware that that's what they're doing. So modeling healthy coping mechanisms, encouraging the physical activity and the healthy habits, the healthy eating and exercise, those, when you're dealing with a long-term strategy, knowing what to enforce and where some of those standards can be negotiated, how much sugar are we going to have? That one. How are we doing on fast food during yes, you can have Sour Patch Kids, but you also have to have a carrot every now and then. And working those into it. And then we were talking about screen time and online, and we have to deal with that. Yep. So the standards that I've pulled out, the Wait Until 8th is an organization right now. Centerville Optimists are working on that one. They're working that through the public school. Really, before 8th grade, there's no need for children to have social media. Screens and cell phones for communication and access.
Depends on the maturity level.
Yes. And the individualized plan for the child, especially when you have more than one. Yes. Well, why do they get to do this and I don't? Because you're different. We don't have a one-size-fits-all. That's not fair. Well, if fairness is treating all of you the same, and with 4 kids, Yeah, you have 3, and when I had 4, and it's like, so what you're telling me is you want me to treat you exactly the same as I do your younger sibling? No. So permission granted to treat you differently. I roll, sigh, fine. Okay. But that's a good program. The integrate and moderate, if you take everything that Vivek Murthy, the previous Surgeon General, did on social media, that's what it comes down to. Integrate. I'm not going to get into power struggles over social media, over the screen time. Right. But if you're on the screen, I'm going to look over your shoulder. And if I can, tell me what you're doing. Oh, that looks fun. Can you explain it to me? Just went with the grandkids to see the new Minecraft movie. Yes. Very good.
Yes, that was good.
And then you tell me what's going on. What was this about? Now they're talking to you, healthy social interaction with an adult about what they're doing on the screen. That's the win. And then moderate for healthy, balanced activity. When we have the grandkids over, it was like, okay, when you're in the car, screen time. After we've just done something fun, that's fine. Not while we're eating, and then, okay, we're going to put the screens down, and then we're going to go do something else. And that's the offer and participate in alternatives. Mm-hmm. So the screen time is hard to compete with, but fun time with an adult who loves them is a pretty strong alternative. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole thing in parenting about negatives versus positives. We're not going to tell them just not to do things. Right. We're going to tell them, hey, we're going to do this now, so put the screen down so that you can do this.
Yes, we're going to do that later.
We're going to do that later. Okay, good. And then restrict for wellness reasons, not as punishment. Almost every behavioral crisis that I've seen where a parent brings the child in, the common thread of you took their social media or their screen away as punishment and they freaked out. Yes, that's always going to happen now. Okay? And what we have to do is find alternative, appropriate, reasonable, connected discipline connected to misbehavior. The problem is, and I'll go extreme, I was thinking about this morning, and I will go extreme with this metaphor. What we're facing now is when a child is dependent or addicted to their screen, and you take it away from them, I'll use the metaphor like media waterboarding. Because the waterboarding is like we're going to make the brain think that it's drowning and induce a panic response. That's what waterboarding is. And that's why it gets such an extreme reaction. When a child is developmentally dependent on their screen and you deprive it, it's almost like suffocating. They do physically have a sense that they're drowning, that it's similar to holding your breath. Something that I'm being deprived of something that I need. Parentally, we know you don't, but their nervous system, especially if they've engaged in heavy, constant, if they've been doing 5, 6, 7, 8 hours on a screen and you take that away from them, their brain panics. And so we do want to moderate the screen time. But if we have an argument, we get fine, and it's like, fine, I'm taking away your primary screen, that generally induces a panic response and brings out their worst behavior. So that's why I, Steve, personally, find something else to use to discipline. Don't do that one. Now, if you want to moderate it, do that during a calm time, not during a crisis time. That's the engagement on that. If you have questions, go ahead and write them down. We'll do the discussion at the end. So, number 1, behavioral health care system, creating a supportive home environment. That's the first priority that we're going to look at. The second one, recognizing warning signs. when do I know that what I'm doing isn't working and I'm going to need to do something else and get additional resources? Paying attention to changes. And this is highly individualistic because you can have a hyperactive child and a quieter child. You can have an extrovert and an introvert, and they're going to be different. And so I joke about most of my mental health issues are undiagnosed because when I was growing up, we only had two. He ain't right. And he's just kind of like that. And then the community found ways of going like, yeah, that's just kind of which was a level of acceptance.
It was, yeah.
It wasn't helpful all the time, but there was acceptance, and it's like, well, that's just, yeah. I need him to sit still and be quiet. Yeah, it ain't going to happen.
We have a few kids that, definitely we knew, back up, let them have their
moment. Let them have their moment, let them have their space, calm down. And in the context of a healthy community, you could do that. It's when you see the changes. The extroverted child becomes introverted. The high-performing child all of a sudden isn't. There's something that's been standard and a change, and I put three things: changing friends. Right. Wow. Oh, you're not friends with that person? Oh, what happened? Change in grades or a change in behavior. That's unusual and that's different. Those are the things when I call the dashboard light. The dashboard light comes on and we go, we should probably be aware that change may be insignificant or it may be really significant. So having the ability to ask questions, tell me more, what's going on, and look for the signs of distress, which could be sadness or anger. Mm-hmm. When you get hey, how was your day at school? Shut up and leave me alone. That response was not entirely related to that question. No. There was something else. Note to self, we're going to come back to that. And again, a child who has more of a child history may respond that way and is like, oh, that's within their normal parameter of functioning, not a big deal. As opposed to, they normally talk and now they don't. They normally don't talk, and now they're yelling. That's a change, and we're going to look at that. Now, don't hesitate to seek help. One of the hardest things for a lot of family is the old, what happens to the family stays in the family. Hey, that's a family issue. We don't talk to outsiders about our family. Or if we talk to the social worker, if we talk to the school counselor, if we talk to somebody, they're going to think we're crazy. And for parents, if I admit my child is struggling, they're going to think I'm a bad parent. That one. Those are actually detrimental to having that good to be home. And so really helping parents to go, no, good parents are the ones who can ask for help, who can open up and say, we do need a little more help and support and intervention than we can do just within our family. And this fourth one with the reconciling, making sure parentally that we're motivated by love, not fear, anger, or power. Because very often we talk about being motivated by love, but very often it's fear. And I would also talk to the children, like, I don't understand why my parents freaked out. And it's like, because they love you, right? And sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's horrible parents saying and doing horrible things. I don't think they love me. Okay, we'll deal with that. Or, what are your parents afraid of for you? Oh, they're afraid, and it's like, do you give them reasons to be afraid? Well, yeah, kinda. Okay, so if you can respond to the parent and go, Mom or Dad, you don't have to be afraid. I know you're afraid of this, but here's why you don't have to be afraid of that. And then show them, very often you can take away that fear. Or very often, parentally, We hear stuff coming out of our mouth and we go, oh, that is not me at my best. I'm going to have to apologize for what I just said. Do it. And then the hard one for me, because I was raised authoritarian, this is my house and my rules and I'm in charge and you will do what I say. Now, do I believe in parental authority? Yeah, it's kind of a legal thing. It'll hold up in court, but there's better, if we're doing it at the point where we're just trying to win a power struggle, we're probably going to lose. And the older the children get, the less power you have over them, and you have to exchange power for influence. So recognize the warning sign, open communication and seeking professional help. Dayton Children's has a very good On Your Sleeves program, which is helping younger children work with communicating their emotions. Great program. Use those resources. Having conversations about emotions and behavior. This is one that I did wrong as a parent, so I encourage every conversation you have with your child can't be about emotions and behavior. So you have to let them talk about what they want to talk about, and if something good happens, you want the kind of relationship where they want to share it with you. And then once they do, let them have their moment. I grew up with a lot of criticism, oh, well, that's good, but it could have been better. And so it was like, I don't want to share because they're just going to crap on it. So that's what friends were for. But good or bad, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking with my parents. So that was out of balance. The listening without judgment. Keep the ball in their court. If they do share a problem, first response, so what do you think you should do? And moving out of fixer, especially if you start that very young. At the time they start school, it's like, well, what do you think you should do becomes a relevant question. Then they get used to the fact of creating solutions for their own problems. If they start with, I don't know, well, what should you not do? Well, I shouldn't do this. Okay, that's a start. And we start building those problem-solving skills into them very early. So by the time 10, 11, 12, 13, it's like, they will come and go, here's what I think I should do. How does that, so you do want to, we're already building that adult-to-adult consultant role very often. And even in safety as a priority of how do we keep children safe by equipping them to problem solve and recognize danger. So they're playing on the playground and they're doing something risky, rather than going, get down from there. The question, what are you doing? Is that safe? Should you be up there? And let them go, oh, okay. And now they're building their own sense of confidence in their ability to recognize a situation. You still want to become the voice in their head. So when they're about to do something risky, it is like, mom or dad would not be okay with this. Now, they may choose to do it anyway, but at least they had that moment of thinking. Listening without the ability to seek professional guidance. We'll give you some options on that. Consider referrals from the pediatrician. Pediatricians are doing much more with mental health than they used to, and that's a good thing. And then exploring community resources, like this class. So if you wanted you're from out of state, and it's like, can you give me a chart of the Ohio system of care? Yes, I can. Good Lord. That's a lot of boxes. Right. Yes. But there it is. So I'm going to start just briefly and go from left to right, top to bottom. Okay. So those top categories are the main categories. So if you're dealing with developmental or disabilities, there's a county board for that. So Montgomery County Board of Disabilities, that's a different category. If you're dealing with struggling at school, then you're in the education and workforce, and you're going to work through your school district, and then related to the school district are service education centers. But if you're dealing with developmental, that may or may not, the school may or may not have the resources. They may be in the other category. And so Montgomery County developmental disabilities is what you would want to look up there. Those are different than the health districts, okay? Which is different than job and family services. So you can see a lot of resources under job and family services, and that's the Edwin C. Moses downtown, on Edwin C. Moses. You can look up Montgomery County Job and Family Services, which is different than Medicaid has the Ohio Managed Care and Ohio RISE, which we'll get into, which is connected to but not the same as the County Adamus Board, which is Mental Health and Alcohol Services. And only recently have we gotten the mental health people to talk to the addiction services people. Those used to be separate categories. And so we finally got that one put together. And then there are youth services, but that's more the courts. So once you get involved with the courts, you're over in that box. Okay. So having that as a guideline to know if we're dealing with a disability, if we're dealing with an education, is it a physical health, is it job and family services is more medicated, disadvantaged, economics, they're going to have the resources for that. Ohio RISE, more generalized and a little bit broader range. Specifically, addiction services and mental health has its own box. And then if the police are involved and the courts are involved, that's a separate silo.
Okay. That's a lot. Do we get a copy of this?
Yes. That's not on there? Did the print come through? We just printed those out.
2 pages.
Oh, okay. We'll get a copy of this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Okay. So in thinking through how do we take that chart and prioritize it, one of the things that I'm working putting a lot of effort and emphasis on right now as a family life coach is this idea of building and utilizing your village. The whole "it takes a village" concept is valid. Absolutely. And a lot of our villages have deteriorated. Mm-hmm. We don't have the village community neighborhood structure that we had a generation ago or 2 generations ago. And so to find the priority of, if faith-based is there, clubs, teams, relatives, neighbors, co-workers, single parenting particularly, and my one daughter was a single parent for 7 years, she needed a lot of support and additional resources. And so connecting to people who have long-range connections, whose threads are kind of woven into the fabric of your life, and thinking in those terms, both for the self-care of the caregiver. I do have some friends, I do have some people who will know if I'm not doing well, ask how I'm doing, offer to support. They may or may not necessarily be a part of the support of the child, but they're part of the support for me. That's significant. One of the big things that we have found in adverse childhood experiences and trauma-informed care is the role of the non-parental adult in a child's life. When they have an art teacher, a choir director, those are my preferences, a teacher, a librarian, a neighbor, somebody who's an adult, who's not a parent, who knows them and cares about them and is safe. That, if they have that, they deal with all this other stuff better. Very often, if you hear a graduation speech where somebody's talking about the obstacles they've overcome, very often they will give credit to a parent, but they'll also give credit to a non-parent who saw them and understood them and accepted and supported them and changed their life. So I strongly encourage parents and caregivers, open up that role and encourage that, and that can be, the variety is almost endless of who's that other adult that they feel safe with who sees and encourages them, and rather than, always be cautious.
Right.
But also be open to that additional influence. And it doesn't necessarily fit any of those boxes, but it's very valuable. Working with, I do have the contact up here for NAMI. NAMI has regular support groups for parents and caregivers on a regular basis. If you type in that link,
Okay.
that will get you there, and they have ongoing programs both for the caregiver and the ability to connect to resources.
Okay.
So positive asset there.
Okay.
Working with school counselors, I've experienced both. We've had school counselors who had dramatic life-saving effect on our kids that they loved, and then when that particular school counselor retired, they were like, I don't know what I'm going to do. They were there for me all the time. I've also worked with school counselors who were overwhelmed and just didn't have the bandwidth because they were processing paperwork constantly. But working with the requesting the evaluation team report, which you have a right to request, and if you request it, they got to do it.
Right.
And then coming up with the IEPs. I think the mindset thing is whenever a relationship with a parent and the school gets oppositional,
Yes.
it becomes less effective. Yes. So when I talk with teachers, it's like, give the parent the benefit of the doubt. They're showing up and trying. Now, you may be able to see how the parent's behavior contributes to the misbehavior of the child.
Sure.
And none of the community caregivers like, hey, here's my 14-year-old that I've been neglecting and abusing for 14 years. Can you fix them in 90 days? No, and whenever parents feel attacked, whenever we feel attacked, we get defensive, and it's like, wait, so you're saying this is all my fault? No, but we're saying that we can be. There are things that you may want to do differently that will help the child respond differently. That's not an attack. That's support, and then I have to go, okay, I'm open to changing what I do. If that will help them change how they respond. One of the primary metaphors in parent-child relationships and family dynamics is called the dance. Mm-hmm. Not a middle school dance, more like the community choreographed dance, where there's this music that forms the context of your family, and everybody develops a dance. They do this, and then they do this, and sometimes we do this together, and sometimes it's corresponding. And when that dance gets negative or toxic, you can disrupt the dance by changing your steps. It's like, well, every time I do this, my child does that. Well, let's see if we can do something different here. They can't respond the same because that parental stimulus has changed. And so when the parent does something different, the child goes, that's different. Mm-hmm. Now what do I do? And then there's a moment of them changing their response, and then working with children the same way. It's like, oh, every time I do this, my mom does that. And it's like, so what if you didn't do that? What if you did something else? I love you, Mom. How was your day? What? Well, I realize that I'm kind of a handful sometimes. And wait, you have personal insight and awareness of parental humanity? We can work with that. And so just by disrupting the dance, we can change the behavior. That's much better than don't you ever do that again, or you'll be punished. Pediatricians, again, referrals, diagnosis. If you're looking for a referral to a psychiatrist or needing a med prescription, go through the pediatrician. have the behavioral mental health talks with the pediatrician. Very often they have access to resources that you just can't walk in on. They go, okay, we're going to set you up, and they can help influence who pays for it. So utilize the pediatrician. Local healthcare providers, Dayton Children's just has a brand new building that they're going to open this summer. An amazing amount of resources. They're hiring like crazy to get good people in.
The one here, is it going to be downtown, or is it the new one at Springboro?
Well, they're building satellite campuses, so those are very good walk-in center. They're increasing the amount of mental health care available in those satellite offices, so very often they'll have somebody there. And I know some of those people, and they are amazing, yes, just to sit down. Very often what's going to happen is they will put you on the right path. So most of that, they all have really good de-escalation training. So if you walk in and the tension and anger level is up here, very often in that visit, they can de-escalate it and bring it down here. That's the major function. And then follow up with resources. So that is increasing. Beckett Springs also, strong presence, strong programs. I'm not as familiar with their admissions policy and getting into there, whether or not you can. I think you can register and request information online, which is why I put the Dayton, Ohio location there. And then also remember 988 and 911. If something's bleeding or on fire, 911. Okay? If it hasn't gotten to that stage, the 988 is the better support line. And that just transitioned, I think, from, I'm blanking on who had it, but a recovery group is now, I think, manning the crisis response for the county. So very often through 988, there is the option of getting somebody to come to the house who's a healthcare professional, not a police officer.
Or an emergency healthcare professional assessment.
Yes, yeah, and the assessment is the right word. They will come out, and very often, and again, I did that job for a couple months. What we're doing is looking at criteria. Does this person need to be admitted? Yes. Which is normally a safety concern. Right. Couple questions that are asked. Do you have a plan? Do you have a motive? And do you have the intent? And if those three things line up, there's a good chance, and it's like, we're going to transport you to the hospital, and you're probably going to be admitted. Sure. If it doesn't meet that criteria, they'll come up with the safety plan. Here's what we're going to do for the next 24 hours to manage this situation, and within 24 hours, we should be able to get you to somebody. Okay. Dayton Children's, I know, also has, it's a transitional. So you can get into a counselor that's going to be short-term, that will get things started, because a lot of the really good therapists, there's a waiting line. Right. Dayton Children's also has their outpatient program, which I've worked in, is exceptional. And they do a better job with parental support than almost any other organization I know of. Wow. So big fan there. I put with the law enforcement and the juvenile courts, I put the statement about supporting your child versus protecting your child. Mm-hmm. And again, this is Steve's opinion. We always want to be supportive of our child. And I've had conversations with my kids. It's like, you have parents who love you, which means I'm going to be involved in your life. I'm sorry if that's inconvenient and restricts your style. You're just going to have to find a way to deal with it. Sarcasm's not a good trait in parenting, and I didn't learn that till later. But for them to know that you've always got their back, but that's different than standing in front of them. So we've had police officers at our door, and then it's like, okay, you did this. Here's the consequences. You're going to have the court, you're going to have the probation, you're going to have, and Montgomery County has some of the best diversion programs. Like the people who will help your child if they're having an addiction issue or a mental health issue, they want to keep them out of court and out of jail. And I've met those people and talked with them, and we've had diversion officers, bend over backwards. Like if the child will give them this much, they will work on that, and they actually significantly, really, truly want to help. Not every officer, not every time, but they're there, and you keep looking for them. So that's, and if you're not getting that from, is there looking for someone else who will connect and finding that connection, it's worth the effort to put into that. Here's Ohio Rise. Let's see if, yay! It's always, we didn't check the audio.
Hi there.
Yes.
Ohio Medicaid managed care procurement began with a bold new vision to focus on the individual rather than the business of managed care. ODM wants to do better for the people it serves. Ohio Rise, resilience through integrated systems and excellence, is a specialized managed care program that will provide behavioral health services to youth with complex behavioral health and multi-system needs. You may be wondering what services are included in the Ohio Rise program. Ohio Rise will provide intensive and moderate care coordination, intensive home-based treatment, psychiatric residential treatment facilities, mobile response and stabilization services, behavioral health respite, and primary flex funds. These services are in addition to existing community behavioral health services and other outpatient and inpatient hospital behavioral health services. Together, these services will provide care for youth who need the most coordinated approach for supporting their complex multi-system needs. All Ohio Rise care coordination involves team-based service planning and evidence-based care through a coordinated approach, leveraging natural supports such as their family and community, with the youth and their caregivers at the center of a highly individualized plan of care. Care coordination will be delivered in 3 tiers, and the 2 most intensive tiers, called intensive and moderate care coordination, will be delivered by community providers called care management entities, or CMEs. Ohio Rise's intensive home-based treatment service will provide comprehensive behavioral health services in a home-based setting such as a youth's family, home, school, or community. Ohio Rise will also provide in-state psychiatric residential treatment facility services beginning in 2023. PRTS will provide high-quality inpatient-level services in a residential setting. This service will help serve youth with the most complex behavioral needs closer to their families and support networks, as well as prepare them to return to a lower level of treatment or family-based care setting. Mobile response and stabilization services will also be available through Ohio Rise. MRSS provides youth and families in crisis immediate behavioral health care and early intervention to help avoid hospital admissions or other out-of-home placements. MRSS will be built upon the existing service provided by the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, and will also be available to children not enrolled in Ohio Rise. Ohio Rise's Behavioral Health Respite Service will provide a short-term, temporary relief to the primary caregiver or caregivers of an Ohio Rise plan-enrolled youth. This supports and preserves the primary caregiving relationship. The 6th service that Ohio Rise will offer is Primary Flex Funds. Primary Flex Funds support services, equipment, or supplies to reduce the need for other Medicaid services, keep the child or their family safe in their home, or promote the youth's opportunities for full participation in the community. These 6 services, along with all of the other behavioral health services covered by Ohio Medicaid, will be provided through a collaborative delivery system across Aetna Better Health of Ohio, the Ohio Rise Plan. behavioral health service providers, and the Ohio Department of Medicaid managed care organizations. Ultimately, the system of care supported by the Ohio RISE program will give you a chance at a bright future and will help ODM do better for the people it serves. For more information about the Ohio RISE program, visit the Ohio RISE webpage on the Ohio Medicaid Managed Care website. You can also contact us at ohiorise@medicaid.ohio.gov.
So the big thing to know about that is the whole, it's a Medicaid thing.
Correct. Mine are post-adopt foster Medicaid, so I have
Hi
actually
there. Ohio Medicaid.
Come on.
called them to get the assessment done. I was able to complete the assessment actually yesterday. So
Nice, nice.
For, but from what I understand, is it just for, could that be used also for my foster child? I guess it could. She's on Medicaid.
You'd have to ask them. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
I don't know why they told me no, so I need to.
Okay. Yeah. Last slide I put in here is a slide about medication, because a lot of I think parents have concerns and there's not a lot of good guidance on that. So this is my family peer support parental personal experience opinion.
Okay.
Not to be construed as clinical advice.
Okay.
Basically, the don't take it if you don't need it. So what I have seen effective is we want to do everything we can to address the problem before doing a medication. Okay? Now, if you get a diagnosis at a hospital, they will give you a prescription for a medication.
Right.
And that's a question of whether or not that's the right call for your child. So it's the last line of defense, not the first, but if you need it, take it. And I will say this. I have talked with so many parents and children, when they get on the right medication, they will say, oh my gosh, we should have done this first or earlier. So it's nothing to be afraid of, but it's not one of my favorite, I think she was a physician's assistant that used to come through our inpatient unit. She was like, we don't have a pill for that. So if you're struggling at school and not getting your homework done, we have a pill that will make it easier to focus and concentrate, but it's not going to do your homework for you. If you hate your mom, I don't have a pill for that. We can calm you down a little bit, but then you have to work on your relationship with your mom. So knowing that it will, the medication will affect the biology. But you still have to do the work on the psychology and the sociology. So how you think and how you behave, that's still going to be you. Now, this particularly antidepressant, antipsychotic, whatever, will help in these ways. The other thing really with psych meds is it's like, well, I took the medication for a week and it didn't do anything. It won't. And sometimes. Most of the time, you have to commit to it for a couple months. Let's try this for a couple months and see if it helps. And that's the healthy approach. And even to do look, we have tried this, and that didn't work, we've tried this, and this didn't work. Let's try this and see if it works. I think that is a holistic, wellness-based approach to medication. And the last thing that we have some time for is discussion. So we will go ahead and take whatever questions you have.